except once a year. That's when the tranquil town of Vepner bursts into life with the arrival of the Caledon 400, round 6 of the National Off-Road Championship. The friendly people of Vepner open their arms to the off-road fraternity every year, and they return the compliment by filling the air with the sights, sounds and action of friendly and serious rivalry. In the 200cc motorcycle class, the competition has been stiff this year, with only 15 points separating the top 4.
Caledon, I had a bit of a technical problem. Something nothing can record do anything about, but I got a new bike and hopefully everything will go well this race. I'll try and keep my head together and just finish.
Wayne Farmer's 1-point deficit is thanks to a victory and 2 second places so far, and despite injury.
Well, at Caledon, when I broke the finger, it was actually very painful, but as they say, no pain, no gain, as by winning the class. But the injuries healed up slowly, slower than I thought. But it's not really affecting when you're out there and the adrenaline is going, but when you're finished, it's pretty sore. But otherwise, under the circumstances, I'll be okay.
In the quad category, standard class leader was Cornel de Villiers, while the modified class was being led by Christo van der Merwe, the defending champion.
You got to be careful on the rocks. You know, rocks can destroy the bike, and water is always a problem. Otherwise, from that, you got to concentrate all the time, you know, and stay focused on what you're doing, and don't race the other oaks, you know, race the conditions. And if you do that and keep on going, then you get to the finish.
Mark Breckel was the winner of the previous round of the championship and had his own strategy for the Caledon 400.
It's a very fast race. Lots of competition, Paul and Vickers and Christo. I think I'm just going to try and do an endurance race and keep the pace up at all times and try and finish the race as fast as I can.
But the undisputed favourite was Paris-Dakar hero Northwest mini farmer Vickers van Deventer.
I prefer long distance, so this will be for me very nice. Yeah, I got a brand new bike from Sally's Yamaha in Lesotho. I'm very glad Alec helped me to get a bike, otherwise it will be quite difficult for me to come and do the race today here.
In the 250 bike category, the battle was as fierce, with points leader Daryl Curtis already having won 3 out of 5.
I enjoy Caledon. I normally do well here. It's one of my favourite races. A lot of people don't like it. And I'm looking forward to it. The time trial, I'm just going to take it easy and try and stay in the first, finish in the first 10, and then tomorrow we're going to go out there and put the pressure on and try to come through to the front.
Defending production vehicle champions Arpi Reneke and Robin Houghton had a healthy lead over the husband and wife pair Tony and Mandy Yo, but the competition was mounting.
Yeah, it's good to have Cliff back with a brand new car. His car is very up to standard, similar to our car, so he will be very big competition to us tomorrow. And as well as the Pajero from Neil will be our competition tomorrow. And it's nice to have them here all in the field, so I think we'll have a nice day and I think we'll enjoy our race tomorrow.
Barker's new BMW M3 engine fitted to his Pennzoil Land Rover was the talk of the town.
It's a standard engine, revs freely, and it's very light on fuel for the amount of power, so I think it's a fairly good choice.
Our other Paris-Dakar hero, Alfie Cox, was the man to beat in the open motorcycle category, having won 5 races already this year.
I don't know, you know, any man on the day, if he has a good day, but, you know, I'm hoping we can just carry on the streak that we've been having and continue the way we've been going. I mean, you know, I don't know about any danger men, but, you know, each guy, I think on the day, 10 guys could probably win.
In the special vehicle category, the championship battle was also close, but former champion Greg Harvey had plans to remedy that.
We find the current Castrol race car we're running is fairly restrictive on us, so we intend getting a Gymco, which also we're going to call the Castrol Gymco, in order to pick our pace up and make us more competitive, because we find we're lacking in certain sections.
As is traditional in off-road racing, the starting positions for the race proper would be determined by a timed trial on day 1, this one over 64 kilometres. The time trial is used for different purposes by different competitors. Some go as fast as they can to get the best starting position for the following day's serious racing, which can cause problems on its own, while others treat it as a shakedown or recce to see whether their vehicle is set up well enough for the terrain and have a look at what kind of conditions are to be expected. Even so, the time trial does form part of the race and it counts towards overall time. Unfortunately, as in any other form of motorsport, off-road racing can also be dangerous and injuries, although uncommon, do occur. But the Vepener Off-Road Motor Club had made provision for just such a case, and with MRI in close attendance, the outcome wasn't too serious. After all the trials and tribulations of the time trial, which saw a number of surprise starting positions the following day, final preparations were completed for the more than 300 kilometers of grueling off-road racing that lay ahead. And when you are without a navigator, you have to have your strategies well planned, as Rob Walk explains.
Well, behind Jepik, and I've got Nardis behind me, which are two twin-seaters, and I think, you know, it's all very well to try and go ahead, but I think I'm going to try and use them as much as possible. And then perhaps towards the last lap, really race, and let's see what happens.
The father and son team led the special vehicles off in their V Motors Epson Racing Raceco, determined to set a fast pace from the beginning. Next off was Walk in his Super Pave Raceco, who wouldn't have the luxury of being able to swap driving duties or relying on a navigator for route instructions, while Nardis Alberts and Johan Kutzer in their Rapsa Raceco took off third. The southeastern part of the Free State was ideally suited to provide a stiff challenge to South Africa's off-roading fraternity, with Racing Section 1 run over almost 200 kilometers in the direction of De Wetstorp. Just outside Vepener on the Caledon River and the Steel Bridge provided an excellent vantage point to our cameramen and spectators, who would see the competitors twice as they negotiated a loop over and under the bridge. The Chepex were going hard, while Walk was being careful not to make an early mistake. The sandy riverbank provided the competitors with an early challenge, with grip levels changing frequently. Alberts and Kutzer were still having to get to know each other under racing conditions, as the navigator was making his debut on the Caledon 400, but Alberts knew what he was doing and was determined to reverse his non-finish result in the previous race. Next up was Bevan Berthold in his Raceco, closely followed by Hilton Laurie and Warren Martin in another Raceco, clearly having decided that putting on some early pressure would be the ideal way of getting Berthold to make a mistake. Berthold had finished 3 out of the 5 races held so far this season and knew that an off-road race is usually won or lost on the final day, but Laurie and Martin were pushing hard. Wilfred Westlau was in another single-seater Raceco and was closely followed by Richard Carolyn in the Lubrication Equipment Raceco. The wide-open plains of the Eastern Free State look deceptively smooth, but on closer inspection, the terrain becomes rocky and hard, posing special problems for man and machine. Production vehicle champions and current points leaders Arpi Reneke and Robin Houghton in their Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser were going strong during the early part of the race, setting a cracking pace and looking at improving on their second position in the previous race. Former champion Cassie Kutsia and navigator Pete Swanepoel in the Castrol Toyota Hilux Turbo, who have not had a good season so far, but who finished well in the last race, the Beltrans Tongaland, were looking forward to a win. Special vehicle category points leaders Greg Harvey and Boy Stone in their Castrol Raceco were starting to make their presence felt, but not far behind them came Shamir Variawa and Sven Muller in their Porsche-powered Chenoweth, who had obviously been able to make up some ground. Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak in their Vodacom Mitsubishi Pajero were another team looking at reversing their bad fortune of late. Having scored well in the first 3 events, they had failed to finish the last 2. Brothers Andrew and Chris Birkin in their turbo diesel Toyota Hilux were leading Class E in the production vehicle category and had 2 class victories and a second under their belt already. The Saybat Land Rover of husband and wife team Tony and Mandy Yo had taken the off-road world by storm this year and were in a position to seriously challenge for the class championship. Making his off-road debut is karting star and stadium competitor Claudio Piazza Musso, partnered by Richard Leake in the Sobe Ford. Piazza Musso is no stranger to flat-out racing over rough terrain, but long-distance racing is a different kettle of fish to short-course stadium off-road racing. Cliff Barker and Heinrich Laterhan in their Pennzoil Land Rover had fan trouble during the time trials and started 37th, some 16 minutes behind the leaders, but were catching up. The new BMW M3 engine was sounding good. The other four-wheelers in off-road racing are the quads, with the undisputed king, South Africa's Paris-Dakar hero Vickers van Deventer on his Gaulois Blonde Sally's Yamaha. Van Deventer was lying third in class. Christo van der Merwe on the Team Joburg Yamaha Answer racing machine was the current class championship leader and had won the first two races of the season. His closest rival in the class championship was Mark Breckel, winner of the last two events, pushing his Yamaha Banshee as hard as he could to catch van der Merwe. Paul Chomse from KwaZulu-Natal was also going hard on his Natal Protection Services Yamaha. He had been lying fourth in the open quad class, just 8 points ahead of Van Deventer. Things were starting to resemble a short course race as Anton Badenhorst was being caught by Breckel, who had caught up with van der Merwe. The tricky thing about racing these machines is that your balance has to be perfect, otherwise it can easily tip over. The quads were starting to catch up with some of the motor vehicles, and here Derek and Tina de Bruyn in their Nissan Sani were being swamped by some riders eager for them to get on with things. In off-road racing, one often has to go through with it, even though all your instincts tell you it's going to be a tight squeeze. That was the case with Niels van der Walt, who was coming up to the same dry riverbed, but made the mistake of going in too fast. And ended up sitting on the wrong side of the machine. Quite a painful experience, I'm sure, but these off-roaders don't let a little pain get in their way. Some additional instructions for the rest of the field seemed like a good idea. To the two-wheelers now, and local hero Graham McLaughlin on his Lesotho Office Equipment Shell Honda was starting to catch up with some of the slower quads. He was leading the open category, while the 250 leader was his teammate Elmer Simons. Greg Aspinall on his Panasonic Russell Campbell Racing Kawasaki was pushing hard to catch up with Simons. He was lying second in the championship and needed the points. Third in the championship, but only 2 points behind, was Clayton Enslin on his Elna Fox Kawasaki, who was just as keen on catching Aspinall. Rion van Niekerk on his AGA Panasonic Castrol KTM was leading the 200cc category, and with 3 wins out of 5 under his belt, but only 1 point in the lead, he was also going strong. Next man through was Lance Trethui on his Lesotho Office Equipment Honda, closely pursued by his teammate Errol Dalton, 5th in the championship before this race. 250 class points leader Daryl Curtis, another Lesotho Office Equipment Honda entrant, was having to pull out all the stops to stay ahead of Rob Campbell on his Shimwell's Yamaha. Jeffrey Wallater, 4th in the 200 class championship before the Caledon 400, was lying second in the race on his AGA Panasonic Castrol KTM, but Andrew Ogden on his Kawasaki was putting up a great performance to stay in touch. Not far behind them came Wayne Farmer on another Kawasaki, the man who was that single point behind Van Niekerk in the championship before they came to the Eastern Free State. Lo Weppener, Boer hero from the last century, kept a watchful eye on proceedings as the local sports fields were turned into an off-road service park. Franz Chepek Senior and Junior made a quick pit stop and were back on their way to complete the second section of the race, eyeing a victory in the special vehicle category. Pete Swanepoel, navigating for Cassie Coetzee and the troubled Castrol Toyota Hilux double cab, watched proceedings bemusedly as one after the other of those funny-looking special vehicles pulled in for their pit stops. The Rapsa race car Nardis Alberts and Johan Kutzer was in a tight battle for the lead, and they also made a quick getaway. Hilton Laurie and Warren Martin reported no problems with their race coat and took to the road after taking on fuel and some liquids for the crew. Into the pits came Bevan Berthold in his race car after a grueling first section of the Caledon 400. There was some concern in the pits as his right front wheel had taken a bad knock. While the rest of the field came streaming in one after another, there was frantic activity around the car as the pit crew hurried to get the fuel in and effect the necessary repairs, so that their man, of course, could get out again to continue with the race. But hardest hit so far was the Castrol Toyota crew.
Yeah, it's a hot, sad story again. We was driving quite comfortably in a good position, and we're losing the four-wheel drive, and they stripped it now and see that one of the CV broke. And you know, it was 65 k's from the beginning this morning, so we decided before we destroy anything. So what happened there is just, I've got the parts here, dealer stripped it and we analysed that's the problem.
No such problems for Parker and Lateghan in their Pennzoil Land Rover, who had been steadily climbing up the leaderboard after their problems in the time trials. Andrew and Chris Birkin in their Class E Toyota Hilux also needed some repairs after a quick roll in racing Section 1.
We just basically in a intersection just parked on its side. Nothing really serious.
Second in their class after 2 victories and a second position and lying 4th overall in the championship, the Birkin brothers needed to continue and finish well up in order to close the gap in both the overall championship and the class battle with Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak, so no time could be wasted in the pits. After the grueling first section over 195 kilometers, Section 2 would take the competitors to the southeast on part of the route used for the time trial the previous day. Just more than 200 kilometers to the end of the race, and in the special vehicle category, the dice for the lead was on between Rob Walk in the Super Pave Raceco and Pretoria's Nardus Alberts and Johan Kutzer, with the lead changing several times. Alberts had been campaigning in off-road racing for many years, having won the Roof of Africa 7 years ago as a co-driver, so hungry for victory couldn't accurately describe how much he wanted to win. Also still in with a shot for overall and super special victory with the Chepex in their V-Motors Epsom Racing Raceco, still lying third, but just waiting for something to go wrong with the leaders. Fourth and some 10 minutes behind Chepex Senior and Junior were still Laurie and Martin in their Raceco car and crew, going like clockwork. Leading the production vehicle category in their Vodacom Mitsubishi Pajero at this stage were Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak, but they didn't have much of a time cushion in case anything went wrong, because Cliff Barker and Hein Lateghan in the Pennzoil Land Rover were closing in. Reigning champions Abi Reiniger and Robin Houghton had been experiencing problems and were out of the reckoning, so victory was beckoning for either of these two crews. The Birkin brothers in their Toyota Hilux were still leading their class and were third in the production vehicle category. No further problems reported. Relaxation in the Free State sun for some, but for others, the hard work was far from over. Mark Breckel on his Johannesburg Yamaha Banshee had taken command in the quad category, and he was bringing it into the refuel. The search was on. They eventually found it, and things were seemingly going well.
It's a tough race, a very rocky race. Lucas and Crystal in the lead, but they were out riding each other, and they've basically buggered up their box. I've been a bit slower, but it seems I'm in the lead now. Let's hope I can keep it there.
A good thing that hot engine is well covered, so while others could take it easy, Breckel knew he still had to finish the race.
Oh, my seat!
Class L Championship leader Christo van der Merwe brought his Team Joburg Yamaha Answer racing machine in for a final splash and dash, knowing that he had a long way to go before catching the leader.
Okay.
Johan Gerber and Kutsia Labuskachny were seemingly looking for the route in their Ray Sonic Chev. They were lying 10th in the special vehicle category, but van der Merwe couldn't really be bothered about their plight as he set off to catch Breckel. Graham McLaughlin was still going well, his local knowledge of the area a distinct advantage, and he had taken full advantage of the engine failure that the pre-race favourite Alfie Cox had during time trials the previous day. The Lesotho Office Equipment Honda rider was leading the open class as well as the motorcycle category.
How's it going?
Very well. I just hope I can get my gas in before this car passes me, otherwise I have to try and get past it.
It was the Lesotho crew of Alex Sally and Ashraf Abubakar in their Lady Brand Land Rover entered Raceco, lying in 12th position in the special vehicle category. Unfortunately for McLaughlin, he could get away in front of them. Second overall in the motorcycle category and leading the 250s was Lesotho Office Equipment Honda rider Elmer Simons, who had had a steady race so far.
Thank you.
How's it going?
Excellent, thanks.
Things were starting to get hectic as Anton Badenhorst brought his Vespa in for a dash of fuel, but Simons wasn't phased and dashed away from the refueling point. This is hard work, man. Greg Aspinall and his Panasonic Russell Campbell Racing Kawasaki was also going strong, second in the 250 category and chasing hard to catch up with Simons.
Hold up, eh?
Now things would really be getting busy, and the refuelers had a tough time ahead of them. Daryl Curtis was third in the 250s on his AGA Panasonic Castrol KTM, just ahead of Clayton Enslin on his Elna Fox FMF Racing Kawasaki. Alfie Cox on his Gulwar Blonde KTM was storming through the field and was lying second in the open class. Making up time in the refuel is essential for the riders to improve on their race position. And getting away in front of your rivals means that you don't have to eat their dust trying to pass them. After 140 kilometers in Racing Section 2, the final leg of some 60 kilometers would be a repeat of the time trial route of the previous day. In off-road racing, this is often the sting in the tail. At the front of the field, the battle for the overall lead was still continuing as Nardus Alberts and off-road rookie Johan Kutzer in their Rapsa Raceco were trying to break clear from the Superpay version of Rob Walk. After more than 300 kilometers, this was all that separated them. Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak were still leading the production vehicle category in their Vodacom Mitsubishi Pajero, and things were looking good for their second victory of the year. But not too far behind were Cliff Barker and Hein Latergan in the M3-engined Pennzoil Land Rover. Their first national production vehicle victory was still due, and they'd not lost hope at this stage. The Birkin brothers, Andrew and Chris, in their Toyota Hilux were still leading their class, and were lying third overall in the production vehicle category. Fourth were Gerard and Vic Kampfer in their Quadri-Sure Toyota Hilux on their way to their best result of the year. The finish in Vapna and the battle for victory was finally resolved when Alberts and Kutzer brought their Rapsa Raceco in first, less than a minute ahead of Walk in his Superpave Raceco. This was one of the closest finishes in South African off-road racing history. The champagne certainly tasted sweet, and there were congratulations all round as Alberts and Kutzer celebrated their first national victory.
We started third position this morning, and we didn't have any problems whatsoever throughout the whole race. And we passed the first two guys, which was typical of Walk, after a while, and then Rob Walk and myself must have had the most exciting off-road race I've ever had, being changed, swapping the lead, maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. it was a very exciting race. The marking was the best I've ever seen, so yeah, I had a good time.
So a happy Alberts and Kutzer, but with their 9th position finish, Harvey and Stone managed to maintain their lead in the championship over Richard Caledon, who finished 14th. The first production vehicle over the line, the Pennzoil Land Rover of Barker and Latergan, after the Pajero ran into drivetrain problems and retired.
Well, we didn't expect to get here first. You know, after yesterday's hassles, we started, I think, in the 30s. But obviously all our opposition had trouble as well. Look, we pushed quite hard. This last lap we just cruised because there was no one to chase. Unfortunately, as I say, the other guys fell out. And here we are, our first win with a brand new vehicle.
With this victory, Barker and Latergan maintained their 6th position in the championship, which was still being led by Reiniger and Houghton, but by a smaller margin. First bike home was local boy Graham McLaughlin on the Lesotho Office Equipment Honda, taking the open category at the same time. This was his 2nd victory of the year.
I took strain to get past the cars, but the pressure was on me all day. I kept on looking back and wondering where the rest of the guys are, but I had a good clean run. I must say the support out there, all the local people, was unbelievable. You can't, really unbelievable.
2nd overall and 1st in the 250 class, another Lesotho Office Equipment man, Elmer Simons on his Honda. This was his 1st victory of the year.
I had a good time trial yesterday, which actually gave me a bit of an opportunity today. I didn't have to pass many people in the dust. So my aim today was just to keep my position, and it was actually pretty easy without having to pass anyone in that. You know, I was chasing Graham the whole day, which kept my pace up as well. You know, but fortunately he made a mistake somewhere along the line, and I got the lead.
McLaughlin closed the points gap to Alfie Cox in the open class. Simons remained in 4th in the 250 class, and Jeffrey Wallater moved to 3rd in the 200cc class. Mark Breckel on the Johannesburg Yamaha Banshee led the quads home.
I had an accident over Anthill. Got quite a fright and I slowed down, thank goodness, because the 2 front runners, Vickers and Christo, were so busy racing each other they broke their bikes and left the 3rd position, which I was in at the time, and I took the 1st position after that. Quite easy.
Breckel's victory lifted him to 3rd in the championship, while John Craig Costello maintained his unbeaten reputation in the unmodified class. Make a note, the next round of the National Off-Road Championship is the Lichtenberg 400 in Northwest on October the 9th and 10th. If you need more information about any aspect of off-road racing, contact Bux Carolyn or Jan Johnson.